Are injuries going to hurt the 49ers again? What is going on? It is Alex coming back at you with another video. And today I am taking a deep dive into the 2023 San Francisco 49ers. If you guys are new, feel free to stick around. I know that not many of you are going to after this video because you guys will probably not like what I think. But I love you guys who do anyways. And you know what? You guys know how to use YouTube. So like, comment, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. Let's get right into this. We're going to break down the depth chart and then go into a records prediction. So, starting out with the offense, Brock Purdy. It's a big question mark as to when he is returning. That's the big, the big 1,000-pound elephant in the room is the fact that, when is a dude returning? My brother-in-law, who does sports orthopedics, says, probably shouldn't be returning until much later in the year. It's not very easy to continue throwing on that shoulder, but there's apparently great progress. But also, Trey Sermon was supposed to be the starting back and then randomly got cut. So who can we trust, right? So I don't really fully trust what's being said out there. Also, not many people fully understand until he's in a game how ready it is. So we'll see. And that's honestly kind of the whole thing about this video is that we need to see when Brock's going to be back. I was a big Brock Purdy guy. You guys can go check the film. I have my quarterback rankings where I had him above guys like Desmond Ridder, who was the second quarterback taken in the 2023 NFL draft. So now looking at the other guy, Trey Lance, I'm notoriously against Trey Lance. I didn't like him when he was coming out, and I gave the pick a B- when it was selected. I love to see the idea of Shanahan with a different style of quarterback, and lo and behold, Brock Purdy, who is much more that standard style of quarterback that Shanahan's been used to and has success with, is the one who's ending up leading the charge. So, for me, I know that this is going to ruffle some feathers, so bear with me. Trust me, I guess I'm bearing myself. I got to bear with myself. But I don't like a QB who, after a loss, is at a strip club throwing cash on hose. Just my thing. I think that a quarterback is a leader of a team, sets an example. And when I hear about even guys like Bryce Young, who haven't even been in the NFL yet, even versus on their wins, going to the film room and saying, I need to be better, I need to improve, I can't make this mistake again. I see that, and then I see somebody after a loss going and just being like, let's party. I really don't vibe with that. I know he's a young kid, and does that mean he's a horrible person? Absolutely not. But it does show that that example is, hey, we're going to have fun, even though we lost. I don't like that. That's just me personally. I don't want that in my locker room. I think it's toxic. As a Steelers fan, I have had plenty of those types of people in my locker room. I know what happens when someone who is genuinely not that person for everyone to look up to is the one leading the locker room. So there's also probably a reason why people gravitated towards Brock, much more of that standard symbol of a leader. And I think Trey Lance still has all the ungodly talent in the world. Love his arm, and I think that he needs to still tone it down a bit. I don't think y'all will disagree with that. And, there is that Josh Allen-esque to him. But I think the issue is people think Josh Allen is a natural progression of a career. And it's not. He totally retweaked his throwing mechanics to be able to throw properly. And we saw last year when Josh Allen's elbow got hurt, I think it was UCL, which, if I'm not mistaken, Brock Purdy has that too. Regardless, you saw that when he regressed his mechanics because of his arm injury, he started playing worse. So it is a huge issue that I don't think is easily solved by practice. My genuine opinion right there. Sam Darnold, people think, might potentially start over him. I think those are more rumors than anything, and I think that's just to spice up the media. But I have to talk about this. I don't think Sam Darnold's better than Trey Lance, and I don't even like Trey Lance that much. I'd rather roll with Trey. I don't think there's as much upside to Sam. He's on a one-year deal, too. Imagine if he plays really well. You got to give him a Geno contract. For me, I'd much rather try Trey out and just say, hey, if we end up having a way worse pick in the end, fine with me. I do not care. But I also think Trey Lance needs a lot of time and a lot of experience, especially since I don't see that work ethic with him. There's all these glowing reviews about how he's performing the offseason. Tell me a team that's not saying how amazing they look in the offseason. I'm sorry, it's a bunch of baloney. Until we see the product on the field, I'm going to believe what my eyes have already seen and not what my Twitter feed is seeing. Had to go into depth right there. Running back wise, you got guys like Elijah Mitchell standing behind the GOAT, Christian McCaffrey. Unbelievable signing, because with all of these NFL policies in place where you get these special picks for, having when you start having certain races become head coaches and stuff, which is, I think it's a really cool idea. Granted, you guys end up getting third round picks out of pretty much thin air because you guys know how to raise a coaching staff. So, great for you. But you guys pretty much got all the capital back from the Christian McCaffrey trade essentially for free. So you guys got a free trade. I think that's wonderful. Great for you. And you guys take advantage of the system that's there. If you're not going to, other people will. So I'm not going to shame y'all at all for it. So good for you. But I think that Christian McCaffrey, even though the price was essentially zero in the long run, ends up being an ungodly addition. I love him to death. Again, you got guys like Elijah Mitchell back there as well. Of note, let's go over to the receivers. You got Brandon Ayuk, who I absolutely adore. He was one of those first guys where I didn't even know. It was before I actually studied the NFL draft in that much depth. That was probably like my first couple weeks at YouTube at that time. And I love Brandon Ayuk. I had no idea he was considered to be a potential first-round pick. I saw the Arizona State games. I was like, wow, this guy's he's pretty damn dynamic. And then he's been just inconsistently healthy. And I think that's the big issue. He is really, really talented, just cannot stay on the field 100% of the time. And if he remains healthy, and y'all know when he is healthy, especially for stretches of time, he is going to be dominant. And then same thing with Debo. Debo, when healthy, might be the most talented player on the field. He's built like a running back, but he also can run routes really well. And he's just overall a very talented player. You got George Kittle, again, when healthy. It's the big issue. I have to project that a little bit into this. When healthy is arguably the best tight end in the NFL. He's just not really been consistently healthy. But when he gets there, absolutely, this guy's a beast. I mean, again, all these guys are awesome. But then you got guys like Cam Law, too, behind him, where you spent a third-round pick. And when you spend a premium on a player like that, I think you have to bring up the fact that they think, hey, we don't trust George to be here all the time. We need to spend something of a high value to have a backup for him because we think that guy might be a big role player. So Kyle Juszczyk, got to mention him as well. The only fullback I'll actually talk about. Just one of those guys where super versatile. He's one of the few fullbacks who have actually earned the respect of being listed on here. I usually do it out of just base respect for a player because, you're in the NFL. I'll give you the respect there, but he's earned the right to be talked about. Obviously, I've seen him plenty of times since I used to be a Steelers fan, watching him on the Ravens, but just a very interesting weapon right there, a hybrid pretty much running back and tight end. He's an H-back, and it's a very good addition to have. He's probably not going to be there for too long, but looking at the offensive line, Trent Williams is the best offensive tackle in the NFL, so that's a pretty good start, but at the same time, you got to make sure that he stays healthy. That's, again, one of those things, but he's a damn good player. He's one of the best. And then Aaron Banks was kind of cheats last year. I think he let up over 30 pressures. Didn't really do too well overall in the first place. I didn't like the pick when it happened, and still not a huge fan of it. Brendel, he's honestly was really solid. Only 14 pressures last year. He's a consistent dude. Not somebody who I'm going to get out of my seat for, get all giddy about, but I still think you could definitely get an upgrade there. Spencer Burford honestly wasn't that good either, but I have high hopes for him. We'll see what happens there. And Colton McKivitz had actually a pretty good year last year, but he did it on 32 pass blocking reps. So can't really say he's really good when we haven't really seen much of him. And everybody's saying, let's go for that right tackle in the draft. So it's pretty obvious y'all believe that as well. Overall, I'm giving it a B- because, I didn't even talk about Jawan Jennings there, but that's my fault. I don't think Jawan Jennings is that special. Other guys have note in the backup, but you got Daniel Gray there too, who I think Trey Lance and Danny Gray would be a great 1-2 punch. But overall, I gave him a B-, and again, that does feel a little bit down, but that also factors in the fact that, I'm having Trey Lance as a starting quarterback. I don't trust the health of the overall team. Christian McCaffrey hasn't even been consistently healthy. So nobody on this team has really provided consistent play. And that's scary to me. I just don't believe that I can give this team an A for their offense when I don't trust the interior of the offensive line, or I can't even trust pretty much 3 or 4 out of the 5 dudes. That's a big issue for me, obviously. And then I don't really trust the slot wide receiver to be that great in Juwan. I know that y'all love him. I just personally don't think he's that great. And then you can't even trust the quarterback. So I'm going to give it a B-. I'm going to stick there because, again, you have star power, but not really as much consistency. The defense obviously is unbelievable. Y'all know exactly what you're doing, but there are some holes. Of course, this team knows how to make the advantage of that because you have probably one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. Nick Bosa, Javon Hargrave, Eric Armstead, and Drake Jackson. Really like that Drake Jackson acquisition in the second round a little bit over a year ago as well. Very high upside player. USC knows how to develop high upside edge rushers now. Back-to-back years, they've had him with Drake and now Tuli Tuipulotu. But, Nick Bosa are obviously one of the best edge rushers in the NFL, arguably the best. You got Javon Hargrave in there, who was a really good off-season acquisition. Expensive, but he's not going to be the head honcho, and that's where he thrives. Eric Armstead is a talented dude. He had 30 pressures, even though he wasn't fully healthy, and I think that's something that he will need to continue boosting up. Cleveland Ferrell was randomly listed as the right D tackle. Don't really vibe with that idea, but maybe that was my fault. I'm pretty much parroting what our lads had on their depth chart. Then again, Drake Jackson, a high upside player, and as a Steelers fan who has TJ Watt and then had a high upside edge rusher there in Alex Highsmith, I've seen the progression of that. And I think it should be something people do more often, having one certified veteran and one high upside player to be able to be molded into that star player rather than paying all that money for 2 stars. Then you have your Sam linebacker, Oren Burks. He just hasn't really played much. He started 2 games at the start of last year, did really, really well, but I'm not going to base my full opinion off of that. He hasn't really done very much. And, I do think that's a weakness because there's not too many weaknesses on this team. Fred Warner, obviously a god. And then Drake Greenlaw, he's a beast too. Can't really complain about that. Talanoa Hufanga was one of my guys a little bit over a year or 2 ago. It's great to see him have success. I was a big fan of him there at USC. And, y'all got my 2 favorite USC guys. Good for you. Tashawn Gibson, he's okay. He's a really secure tackler. He has under 3% missed tackle rate, and I always love to see that because missed tackles are what really does kill you in the NFL. So good to see that for sure. Isaiah Oliver wasn't even a starter last year. Definitely could have put him as part of the worst unit there. Diamador Lenoir, not a fan personally. He had a good game versus Seattle towards the end of the year last year, but definitely don't want him being a boundary corner. And Javarius Ward's a talented dude. I like Javarius Ward. But you have a great defense. Other players of note, third round pick. You got Jair Brown, who's one of my guys as well. I liked him a lot. I think he might take over for Tashawn Gibson and move over to free safety, but we'll see about that one for sure. You got Samuel Womack, who had a very good preseason. I remember hearing all about Sam Womack. Then you got Darrell Luter. I'm not sold on him, but I know a lot of y'all are. And then Javon Kinlaw still sitting there as a backup, but I think we've kind of come to the understanding that he's not going to be that great. But overall, B+. Not many teams get a B+. I am very critical. As you guys can see, your offense was a B-. I don't like giving out A's or A-. I just don't. I think your defensive line is an A. I would say an A. I don't think Eric Armstead's been healthy enough to boost it to an A+, and I don't think Drake Jackson's just there just yet. But damn near close to an A+. I think your linebacking core is also like an A- territory to A, just because you have 2 beasts and then one guy I don't trust at all. And then Talanoa Hufanga, I love him. I don't trust Gibson, so I'd probably give that a B, maybe a B-, because you do have a big weakness there, and that could lead to some big shot plays. And then your corner room, I don't like 2 out of 3 of your starters, and then even behind them, I like maybe 1 dude. So I'd probably give that a C. So overall, I think a B+ is perfectly warranted. So y'all are going to kill me for this, but this really depends on when Brock Purdy returns. Some people are like saying, oh, he's going to return. He's going to be ready for about week 1. And I'm not going to start him versus Pittsburgh. That's just me. I don't want to have all those edge rushers crush him to death. I'd rather start him on an easy game, which is LA. So I'm going to start him out there. I think you guys would end up 10-7. I think your team is good. But I just don't really know if there's a lot of quarterbacks that have that second year stumble because teams have tape on them and they can study them. And there's a lot of magic that Brock Purdy had that I don't know is replicable. But let's talk about the schedule as is, pretending that Brock returns in week 10 after the bye. Because again, I don't want him taking a ton of shots on his shoulder. I would like him to have a full week there in week 9 to be able to get ready. So we're pretending Brock Purdy returns in week 10. Keep that in mind. So start out at Pittsburgh. I think Pittsburgh, they're pretty damn hot off the end of last season and got totally better in the offseason too. I think Pittsburgh is going to be a really good team that not many people think about. Los Angeles Rams is just absolute crap. I just did a video on them. So even with Trey Lance, in my opinion of Trey Lance, I don't think they're going to be great. Then you got New York, who they overachieved for sure. That's a game you could end up snagging a W, but I don't trust Trey Lance. Again, if Brock Purdy were playing that game, I'd probably give y'all the W if he ends up returning in week 2. But again, even if he does, he's still going to be very skittish with throwing very hard, with getting hit. Like, you have to think of the psyche of the game. And I know that a lot of you super fans sometimes want to look past that because it's very tough to say that, hey, we're like always top of the division, top of the conference, and everybody's hyping us up. And I'm the one guy who's not. So I already know. Arizona's a crap team. I know you guys could whoop their ass. And I have you guys winning both of those games. And then next, I also have you sweeping LA. So y'all do a pretty good job in this division here. Dallas is a damn good team. You have a tough schedule here. You're going to Cleveland and Minnesota. It's a really different climate to Santa Clara. And when you have Trey Lance, who's still getting used to stuff, you saw how he was pretty much ineffective versus the team who had that #1 overall pick. You know, Justin Fields, even at an early stage in that year before he really came out and was himself, ended up beating y'all. I have concern for that. Yeah, it was a freaking monsoon. Yes. But I still believe that when you guys are out of your element and you have Trey Lance, who's not fully in his element, I think shit happens. That's just the truth. Cleveland and Minnesota both have very talented teams, respectively. Then you go to Cincinnati, another team that's just one of those Super Bowl competitors. Then you have Brock Purdy come back, and you go to Jacksonville. Like, that is just absolute hell. So, going to give Jacksonville the dub there. Tampa Bay is a team that's definitely, it's much more difficult to beat them than what people think, but I still think they're going to be a very talented team, but beatable. So I'm going to have you guys take the dub there. Seattle is one of those juggernaut teams. We'll talk about them later in the week. I'm very scared about them because they're fully geared up for a push. The question is, will Geno Smith become Geno Smith, or will Geno remain the guy who we saw last year? That will be totally determinant. If Geno returns to the pumpkin form, I could easily see you guys stealing a game here. And again, I think with Brock Purdy coming back in week 2, you guys could easily have 12 wins. It's just, there's a couple coin toss games in there. So keep that in mind again. Then you go to Philadelphia, who's an absolute juggernaut as well. So you have Seattle, Philadelphia, Seattle. That's pretty rough. But I have you guys winning out the rest of the season. Arizona, even with Kyler back, I have Kyler, I think, coming back week 14. It's still pretty tough for them to really do anything. Then you got Baltimore. Yeah, I'm having you guys beat Baltimore. That's how much I believe in you with Brock Purdy. So don't come at my ass trying to say that I don't like your team. I have you guys beating Baltimore. Then you go to Washington and then beat their asses, and then you sweep LA. So overall, you still are actually in the playoffs. So low-key pipe down. But especially if you end up with Brock Purdy coming back in week 2 and it ends up being 10-7 or a little bit better, you guys are easily in the playoffs. It's just I don't trust Trey Lance. That's the bottom line. Will Trey Lance hurt your record? I think he will. But overall, this team is still very talented. It still poses a huge threat. Even without Brock Purdy, who, again, I'm a huge fan of, you guys still pose a huge threat to teams. So that's not very easy to say. That a lot of those teams that are having really bad records because I don't believe in the quarterback. And you guys still have a very, very respectable record with a quarterback I don't believe in. Take it as you will. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you guys on the far side. Peace.